Hi everyone and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Van Helsing, Season 1, Episode 2. It's called Seen You. Full spoilers for the episode, and it's worth mentioning as well that this was aired as like a double with Episode 1 on SyFy, but they actually aired the first episode like a month and a half ago, and we reviewed that then. We watched the advanced showing of it.
Feels like a long time ago.
It really does. We've had so many reviews since then. I remember things for the most part. I think there was maybe some finer details that went away, but the reason why I'm bringing that up specifically though is I feel like they made a really wise choice in airing episode 1 and 2 together. Now I think episode 1 worked very well on its own, but I feel like episode 2 on its own would have
Failed a lot here.
like it would have felt like, oh, there's no actual progression on the main story. Whereas airing it together with episode 1, it feels like, okay, you're getting your backstory, you're getting your taste of what the actual present day story will be at the same time. So obviously it was a wee bit different for us because we watched them like a month and a half apart, but so I think it was wise for them to do that,
Yeah.
because I definitely preferred the first episode over the second episode.
My biggest problem, more than anything, is it reinforced my biggest problem with the first episode.
What was the big problem? I can't remember what your problem with the first
Right.
episode
My
was.
biggest problem was that this wasn't a vampire show like I was promised. It was a zombie show,
Oh,
or it
wait,
felt like.
this one was more like a vampire show. There was
Sure, it had more vampire elements, but at the same time, this felt even more like the start of every zombie movie.
Well, see, I actually thought it was interesting because back when we watched the first episode, we were really curious about this volcano. Like, wait, volcano leading to vampires? Like, what's going on here? So I liked all the volcano build up in this. The effects for what SyFy can do were pretty decent. Like, I like that moment where the big one erupts.
Mm.
And they're in the hospital, and you can see it at the window, and you just see this big wave of like,
Yeah, it was all right.
yeah, it was a cool moment. But I actually, my biggest problem with this episode might actually be the more normal vampires that we've seen. The guy with the goatee and his evil, sexy, you know,
Henchwoman.
mistress or yeah, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
second in command. Like, they felt really cheesy and out of place compared to everything else. Because even when the vampire who goes to attack Vanessa at her home, that scene I thought was handled quite well. It felt quite. I felt like Vanessa lived in a world that didn't feel like it was inhabited by things like this. So when that vampire came in and attacked her, it felt really like brutal and really,
Yeah.
like scary almost. Not scary like I'm scared like a horror movie, but scary and like, oh, this actually feels like a really tense, like serious moment.
Yeah, it was more of a home invasion sort of
Yeah,
thing.
rather than just, oh, it's a vampire show and I'm seeing a vampire attack. It felt more, yeah, it felt more visceral and more down to earth, which
Yeah.
I liked. That was probably the highlight of the episode for the most part.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Um, but yeah, we just reinforced some stuff. We actually see Vanessa with her daughter, which we'd heard about, and the daughter was okay. I did feel like she was occasionally a little bit too smart for her age, and also a bit of an exposition machine, where she would say things very unnaturally to get a bit of
I'd
information
say
across.
a bit putting it mildly.
Okay, maybe often. Well, we are mild fuzz. Okay, so
Just because mild is in the name doesn't mean you have to put everything mildly.
um, no, I will concede that, but obviously, though, if we ever run into her in present day, she's going to be an adult. So the actress is, it's not even a big deal. She'll be gone. Like
Yeah,
it'll be, well, she won't be an adult. She'll be, well, yeah, she'll be 18, something like that.
yeah,
How many years have passed in the present? I forget because it's been so long since we watched the first episode.
yeah. I forgot as well. I can't remember.
I would have watched that again, but we've been so busy with like new shows this week that was not even.
Yeah, I'm struggling to remember, to be
I
honest.
can't remember. Maybe it was only just like after the 3 years because it was 3 years when it cut to when it went into the future in this episode. So I
Yeah,
don't imagine it was too much longer after that.
I don't think it was.
Maybe another year. I don't know. Um, yeah, but she'll be a late teenager basically by the time we see her again. So
Yeah,
the actress, not that the actress was necessarily bad, but
yeah. It was more of a writing issue than
yeah.
anything.
But if you had an issue with the acting, it would be a big deal because we'd have someone you come any
Yeah.
future meetings with her. So we find out that Vanessa's was a bit of a badass even before she had powers and whatnot. She beats up the guy who hit his girlfriend and the neighbor out in the
Yeah,
hallway.
just breaks his nose.
Breaks his
Casual.
nose. One of the points that I remember making with the first episode was that it felt like SyFy was trying to be a little bit more mature, and I felt that again here. The violence was occasionally turned up a little bit, and they had some muted f-bombs,
Yeah, there was a few.
which kind of like on USA Network with Mr. Robot. Like they'll have them say it, but they'll mute it. But they're definitely trying to go for a slightly more prestige feel to their show. Well, not that they're succeeding in it is another question, but they seem to be
They
trying
are,
for that.
but like you say, like the vampire stuff still feels cheesy, like
It does.
other sci-fi stuff, and I kind of feel like I almost prefer that in a way to a lot of this stuff.
See, it's weird because I like what it's trying to do for the most part.
See, I don't think it's bad. It's just it's trying to do zombies, but
Well,
like all of this feels like a zombie, like the start of a zombie movie where like you've got them all huddling together, that you've got them all like coming at them in hordes. It all felt like a zombie thing.
It does, and we said that when we spoke about the first episode. But these leader, this main villain vampire and his henchwomen, they don't, and I think maybe.
Which is why I kind of like them, because that's what I was promised: vampires and proper vampire stuff, and that's what they're giving me. But it's just the more cheesy stuff.
I'm expecting I'm assuming there's going to be some mythology to explain why they're like proper vampires and why all these regular ones are just running around like zombies. Maybe it's because they're really old, because they mentioned they've been alive for centuries and.
Yeah, they clearly remember actual Van Helsing.
Yeah, which of course will come up when they realise who this woman is that can revert them. But
Yeah.
like presumably because they're so old and it takes like years for them to become
Yeah, that, or maybe they have to, because I've seen vampire mythology things before where they are mindless until they drink the blood of an older vampire.
Yes, that's a very traditional. That was in Buffy as well. Well, in Buffy they didn't turn at all unless they drank the blood of the vampire that was siring them.
Yeah, that's a common vampire thing. That goes back to Dracula.
Yeah. So it could
But
be that.
I've seen them be mindless until that.
Yeah. It could just be that, and because it happens on a mass scale when this like apocalyptic volcano thing starts to happen, which at least for now seems unrelated. It wouldn't surprise me though if later they tie it in somehow, like it's happening because of X vampire reasons.
Still leaves a concern though as to, okay, sure, this is a super volcano in the US, Yellowstone, right?
Yeah.
What's wrong with the rest of the world? Why haven't they tried to do anything? Why didn't they try and step in with the other militaries and stuff?
How do we know they didn't?
But why would they all fail that badly?
Well, it depends. Maybe after the Yellowstone one, something in Europe happens, and like maybe there's like one in each continent that all goes.
Oh, okay, I get you.
We have no idea if it's just contained to. Obviously, we see the news programs here, so US was presumably first, but for all we know,
Right,
this
okay.
happened all over the planet.
I follow you now, yeah.
We know Iceland probably went because they always. This is a weekend for them.
Yeah, that's true.
Dear. Anyway, so yeah, I didn't enjoy this one as much as the first one because I did think the vampire leaders were a bit cheesy, and it did. This one, like I felt like the first one focused mainly on setting the tone, and I really liked the tone. Like I really liked what they were setting up in the world. Whereas this one, it felt like, right, here's all the exposition we need to get out of the way. So, and it felt like it was a list of like exposition checklist, and there was a couple of cool moments like the volcano going off, like the home invasion vampire scene, but a lot of it was just like, here's some exposition, and I feel like even like I know you still have your doubts, but I feel like we can't even judge it on this episode because this is clearly an outlier.
It is. It was like, okay, so the whole last episode was Vanessa was the mystery, right? And this was like, okay, we should probably say how we got to here.
It almost feels like it was meant to be intercut with the last episode. Like, it was meant to be like every so often we get a flashback and they'd build it up over the 2-hour
It
pilot.
almost feels like you could swap the order around.
It does, although I liked it starting off with the mystery the last time.
I get that, but like you could easily swap these 2 episodes and it would work just as well.
You could, yeah. But it almost feels like I said, it feels like they were meant to like intercut. Like they had a 2-hour pilot idea, and it was going to like you'd be in the first one for maybe 20 minutes, and then it would start interlinking these flashbacks as we go on, and maybe then you could cut down some of them, and they wouldn't feel as forced because they would play out separately.
Yeah, I get that.
Which would be fine, but maybe take out the villain parts just to like leave them mysterious for and give them a proper introduction. Like I could see how it would work.
Yeah.
What I'm saying though is I feel like we at least need to watch episode 3 because I don't think that this one's indicative of anything much really.
I actually agree. Even though I'm clearly not as keen on it. I do agree. I do need to see episode 3 before I actually make up my mind.
Because I wasn't as keen in this one as I was the first one, obviously. But I liked a lot of the first one. I liked the pacing. I liked the building of what was outside and all that. So I'm hoping that they can continue that with episode 3.
Yeah, now's the question of do they get back to that and actually get into it properly,
and
or
I think
is
they
this,
will.
I'd assume they would.
The tease at the end, it was like this season on Van Helsing seemed all future based.
Yeah.
So that would be my guess. I want to make one complaint about the effects actually, even though I was generally fairly happy with them for SyFy's typical standards, better than their standards I'd say in some cases. The scene where like the evil henchwoman and the doctor guy that they're like the evil vampires are making this doctor like do experiments for them to try and figure out how a cure for Vanessa and whatever. And they open this freezer and there's this guy with no limbs, right? And I thought the limbs part of him looked great. He looks like he has no limbs.
It's the guts part, isn't it?
The gut looked atrocious.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even realise that he was meant to have his gut because it's meant to be his intestines are spilling out, and I didn't even realise that's what was happening because there's no depth to it. I thought it was just, lots of blood on his...
Yeah.
And then I looked at it and went, wait, that's meant to be intestines falling out. And it just looks like... It looks like someone's painted it on him. It was terrible.
Maybe that's what actually happened. They ran out of CG budget, so they just actually painted it on him and went, that'll do.
That's really what it looked like. It was really quite atrocious. All I could think was, why even put that in there? The rest of it looks great. It looks like he wants to die enough just with the limbs being cut off.
Yeah.
And being covered in blood. You don't need this really crappy effect in the middle.
I agree. I'd have removed it if I was them. Once I realised I was close to the air date, and it's like, hang on, this still looks awful.
We don't need it. Just
get rid of it.
Just replace it with lots of blood.
Just Control Z that thing.
Yeah, basically. But anyway, but that said, I'm still optimistic about the show as a whole because I did really like the first episode.
Yeah, I want more of the cheesy vampires.
Well, maybe we'll get a 50-50. I'll get what I want, you can get what you want going forward.
That'd be nice.
I really like the violence though. Because it was when I seen the previous one, I remembered about the the cool knife stab in the first episode.
Yeah.
And, there was a lot of cool moments like that. So I'm hoping we get.
No, I agree. I like the violence. It's all the zombie elements that I'm not enjoying, which is why I think even though it was kind of out of tone, I enjoyed the cheesy vampires because it was like this is vampires now. But it just felt out of place. It's like,
I'm sorry if I seem distracted. There's a feeling apocalypse going on outside my door. Two of my cats are fighting and they sound like they're in an apocalypse. It's
about to trigger a volcano, are they?
It's amusing me. Well, there's some hissing there. Right, let's wrap up. I think we're good to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Alright, so let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Obviously, if you watched this back to back with the first one, you may have a very different opinion on us. But yeah, let us know. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Helps us out a lot. Thank you very much for watching. Get us on Twitter at mild_fuzz. And we'll see you next time.